Say, right, we are live. I'm joined by Jay Brown. This is the Irish Abroad Show. Welcome back, Jay. Great to see you back in action and back on the channel. You're going to be hosting this one, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that early introduction and throw me straight into the deep end on my first show of the new season. But yeah, obviously, because we got back up and running last week, and of course, anyone who listened to the show last week will know it was a very, very action-packed show. A lot of involvement between the Premier League, Championship, and further afield. Not quite as eventful this week, but still plenty of talking points. And I suppose we are getting closer and closer now to the September international break, and Stephen Kenny's squad for them doubleheader against France and the Dutch can't be too far away. So I suppose every kind of game now at this stage probably racks up in terms of significance, in terms of players, I suppose, getting minutes under their belts and finding form ahead of what arguably could be a defining window for Stephen Kenny, realistically speaking, as Ireland manager. But we'll start, as we always do, with the Premier League. And on Friday night, Sheffield United played Nottingham Forest, and John Egan played the full 90 minutes for the Blades as they suffered heartbreak, losing 2-1 away to Nottingham Forest, with, of course, Chris Wood getting that late winner for the home side. Flash Score gave him a rating of 6.6, and the Star, a local newspaper in Sheffield, usually always very good for player ratings and Sheffield United performances. They also didn't really give Egan the kindness of ratings either, saying a 5 out of 10 rating, kind of feeling he could have done better maybe for both goals, feeling that he seemed to get caught on the flight of the ball for a Woods header as well. He even had a header, I think he had a back post from a corner that he felt he could have got under a little bit more. I know you were saying last week, Paul, I didn't really get to see their opening game against Crystal Palace, apart from the 3-minute highlight package you see in Sky Sports, which doesn't give a lot away. That again, maybe one or two moments he kind of seemed to get found out a little bit. I suppose my kind of biggest concern for Enda Stevens is the previous time with Sheffield United in the Premier League, even the season they got relegated, he was fine, but he was still in his 20s then. He's now 30, 31. That's 2 seasons ago. He's probably not as young as fresh as he was 3 or 4 years ago. And I think in general, Sheffield United probably even have a worse squad than they had in the squad that went down, that it could really be a big struggle for him this season and for the Blades in general. Oh, sorry, if I said in the Stevens apologies, I meant John Egan, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think what you said there about the players that they have, I think their squad is not as strong, obviously, as it was when they first came up to the Premier League originally. And I think that they'll struggle all season. I don't think it's going to be dependent on him You know, I thought he should have moved away from there a long time ago, and I thought he would have been well within his rights to kind of move. When he came up the first time, he was brilliant for Sheffield United. I think all the fans love him. They still love him now, but I just think that he should have moved. I think when they went down that time, when they got relegated, I think he should have moved then. I think it's going to be a long, grueling season for him and Sheffield United, and it's not good for confidence, obviously, when you're playing down that end of the table. Constantly, and you're constantly surviving. But maybe Seamus Coleman might have a bit of advice for him, because obviously Everton are heading the same way at the moment. But yeah, just, you know, I watched the goal last week where Edward scored. I felt as though maybe Egan could have maybe adjusted his body a bit better. But again, it's easy for me to sit here and say that. You know, I'm not playing the match at the speed in which the Premier League is played at as well. You know, you can't always just be, oh, you're just going to adjust my body here and everything will be okay. So you are literally adjusting at the speed of light, really. But I think, look, it's still early days. I don't think, you know, you can be heaping the performances onto him or whatever. You know what I mean? I know he's the captain, but there's only so much a captain can do on a pitch. I still think he's a quality player, but I do think it's going to be a long season for them, and I don't see them staying up, if I'm being honest with you. It would take a lot for them to stay up. Obviously, selling Sander Berg as well was going to be a big loss for them as well. And I don't know, like, they got Tom Davis in. He's definitely not the replacement that you wanted there. He's very lets games pass him by a lot of the time. And yeah, when your man Berg was actually, you know, he was one of their main men since he came in there. He was a big money signing for them as well, and he obviously left for Burnley a couple of weeks ago. And I just think when you're bringing Tom Davis in there to replace him, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I think even if you look back on the game as well from Friday night, again, I've just seen 3-minute highlight clip from Sky Sports. Again, I don't think you can even say, right, okay, the local paper might have been a little bit critical. And it wasn't just him, I think it was the defender in general for the 2 goals. But they actually had enough chances as well. They missed a couple of really good chances, especially at 1-1. So they would definitely feel like that was a game that they, you know, were probably left behind them. I think the probably worrying thing for Sheffield United is when they looked at their first 2 fixtures, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who they're playing next week. But when you looked at Crystal Palace at home, Forest away, like, that's not that bad of a start. We could definitely get a couple of points from that, but they've known from 2, and you kind of feel like if they don't pick up something between now and the September international break, like you said, it just gets harder and harder to kind of pick up points like the time they got relegated. So they're struggling down the bottom end of the table. But we have an Irish player actively involved with a team that is top of the table. Evan Ferguson, he came on the 67th minute. As Brighton, as I mentioned, have gone top of the table on goal difference even. With that 4-1 win against Wolves, they're absolutely devastating once again. Brighton absolutely tore Wolves to shreds. And this was a Wolves team that probably played Manchester United off the park in truth at Old Trafford only 5 days earlier. Again, disappointing to see from their point of view, from an Irish side of things, Matt Doherty once again and Joe Hodge, unused subs in this game. But yeah, Ferguson, obviously, again, I'm not going to lie, when I seen the team sheet came in, I was kind of like, why isn't he starting? Like, you know, he starts all these other young promising players, and everyone's saying, oh, he's just protecting Ferguson, but he's no problem in starting all the other good young players. I do think eventually over the course of time, with the numerous games that Brighton have got, and Ferguson has shown his ability to come on and make impacts in games, that he will eventually get there. Now, it was also interesting to see João Pedro didn't start this game, their big money signing from the summer, and he had a fantastic home debut the previous week. But in general, it's still good to see, and Evan Ferguson's stock still obviously very much on the rise, you would have to say.
Yeah, well, I think this might be a weird way of looking at it, but do you think that maybe De Zerbi's thinking, okay, if I don't play Ferguson as much for the first 3 games, there won't be as much hype around him, we won't have to sell him? That could be in his thoughts, I don't know. Like,
possibly, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like, so if he's, obviously he came on and in the 12 minutes that he played, he hit the post and scored a goal, and he was so determined to get on the end of that chance to score the goal. Like, I think there was a fella coming in behind him, and he was probably,
otherwise, yeah,
he was probably in a better chance to score, but Ferguson wanted the goal more than him. And you could see that, like, and that's what you want from your centre forwards, just to be like goals hungry, nothing else. Just wants to score the goals and doesn't care about it. And now, in fairness, like, he does link with play and stuff like that, but that I was just so impressed by the hunger of him to get on the end of that chance. But as I said, there was a lad there who was probably in a better position to score the goal for Brighton on the day. But like that, I think that's the only reason why he's not starting games. Because I think he's thinking, right, well, if we can maybe dim the hype around him just for a little bit, we might get to the end of the window and still have him, rather than him having to go out then and probably have to, again try and go to the well and get a replacement in for Ferguson. Although they'll have all the money, they'll only have the money at the end of the window. So that's probably in their thoughts. I don't know. Like, we obviously know that their owner came out the other day and they'd be looking for like more money than Casado for Ferguson, which is great. I think Bowes will capitalise on that as well. They'll be delighted because they have a sell-on clause there, and they'll get a percentage of that sale. And if it is, like, he'll be one of the record transfers in the Premier League. But I think that's being broken nearly every season now by someone. Obviously, we know that Snake. I think he's the current record holder at the moment, Mr. Rice. So I think it'd be funny if Ferguson actually overtook Rice and Grealish on that list, and then because of obviously the whole thing originally was, oh well, they'd have to play for England for them to get a huge price tag, blah blah blah. But funny enough, obviously, Ferguson would be coming in there as a full Irish international, and he could potentially top them, which I think would be good. Probably a selfish point of view, but Bows fans would be delighted with that. I think Irish fans would be happy just to see an Irish player kind of in the headlines for the right reasons, rather than a lot of the time recently, Irish fans have just been looking for some hope of some sort, and basically scraping the barrel for the bare minimum of, a player might have done well, or a player might have got a man of the match at the Premier League game, and that's been the be all and end all of it. Whereas now we actually have a player who's scoring, playing in the Premier League, and if he's not playing, like you just said there's almost an element of how dare Brighton not play our star man, because we want him to be fit and sharp and ready for the France game and the Netherlands game, because we're going to be dependent on him more so than Brighton are. He's our main man now. Even at 18, I think you have to say he's our main man, and we want to see him playing games because he is our international goal scorer in a sense,
Yeah, Brighton said obviously 2 more games before the international. Again, I think it'd be a case of he'll definitely see game time in them. And like I said, as he's shown his ability within 12 minutes to get in the score sheet last week and literally stretch himself so much to deprive. I don't know who the other Brighton player was, but they would have had a simple tap in. He said just he's hungry to get goals. You'd still give a good shout and good confidence that he could get another goal before he departs to join up with the squad for the France and Dutch game. Just quickly before we just move on as well with the Premier League and touch on Nathan Collins, 1 or 2 things more. Just on this game, Matt Doherty, frustrating second half of the season after it goes to Atletico Madrid, makes 2 cameo substitute appearances. You're thinking grand, gets a move back to Wolves, a club he's familiar with, where he was a fan's favourite from his first spell. He'll get game time. Now look, it's 2 games in. Wolves of a League Cup game coming up next week. I'd imagine himself and Joe Hodges see game time. They're struggling. They're a poor start to the season. They're shipping goals. So obviously maybe Gary Neal might look to change things up. But again, kind of quite worrying that it seems to be a new club with the same trend again from Matt Doherty.
Yeah, but it's early days. The only thing is, again, like we're worried because we're coming into an international window with no Coleman and no Doherty playing. So that's kind of why we're probably a little bit worried and a little bit anxious that our fullbacks aren't really playing. Our right wing backs aren't really playing. There is a comment there from Nathan Fitzpatrick. I just want to read it out before we might not get a chance to touch on it later on. He just says Sammy Smodux for September, yes or no, and then he said for me, he has to be in the squad and Ryan Manning has to start. So again, we'll address that when we come to the championship. But I was thinking of fullbacks there, and obviously Ryan Manning would come into that equation. But yeah, our fullbacks is an issue because obviously another player who we're going to talk about later on is Festi. He was injured after starting the season well at Serie A. I don't know the extent of the injury, but right wing back at the moment is becoming a very big worry. That I know Jason I can fill in there if we need him to. But not having, I suppose, your first choice of the 2, not regularly playing. Obviously, we know Coleman's injured and he wouldn't be playing anyway because he'd have to play a run of games before he probably was even considered get up to speed, match fitness and stuff like that. And then you've got Matt Doherty, who, I mean, Tomatoes is a really good player. Like, you don't go and play for Barcelona and he was starting at Barcelona as well for a good bit. I know he left when obviously they had all the Portuguese players kind of coming in and stuff like that. But I think Semedo is a very good player. I'm surprised someone else hasn't come in for him by now to try and take him. And that might be the case. He may even go over the course of this window. It's obviously still not. I think is this the 1st of September. I think it's the end of the window.
1st of September, yeah.
So there's still this, 10
days.
10 or so days, yeah. So I still think there's going to be a lot going on. I don't really tend to take much notice of the first couple of months, or first couple of games, of the season, which is always kind of August, early September. I don't really, because everyone's still assembling their squads at the same time. That's why I'm not worried about kind of our Irish players at the moment, but I would be worried kind of if we're coming into the September games, probably after the international window, and he's still not getting a run, then you kind of go, oh, okay, that's probably not a wise move, because I'm sure he would have been going there seeking assurances that he would have played, considering he's hardly played at Spurs, he's hardly played at Atletico, and then he's back now at Wolves. So it is a worry, of course it is, because he'd be one of our bigger players again for Ireland. So these are, we're worried about our big players. Again, it's a selfish thing, but this is an Irish show, so of course we're going to be biased and selfish in that sense. And as I said, he is one of our, but also now in the recent years, he's actually one of our most experienced players, because he's got a lot of caps since obviously Kenny's come in towards the back end of O'Neill, and then with McCarthy and stuff like that. So in recent years, he has got a lot more caps. That probably took him a long time to get the caps, but now I feel he's one of the most experienced. And I think actually under Kenny, he's probably one of our better players in terms of his performances have always kind of been steady enough, even though he hasn't been playing that much maybe at club level. But I think he's been steady enough under Kenny, and I think Kenny has a bit of frustration that a lot of his best players haven't been playing at club level. Any of the better players in the better teams haven't been playing consistently at the top level as well. So I think that's a real frustration for Irish fans as well.
Yeah, and speaking of frustration, one player who had a pretty frustrating second half of the season as well last year was Nathan Collins, but he's having a good start to this season with his new club Brentford, and he helped them keep their first clean sheet of the season as they recorded a comprehensive London derby victory 3-0 away to Fulham at Craven Cottage. Flash score gave him a 7.2 rating. And then the only kind of publication I could find on a player rating on him was a website called Pundit Feeds. They gave him a 7 out of 10 rating, saying fantastic block in the first half. Looked defensively sound. The only other kind of involvement from an Irish point of view over the weekend were Queevy Kelleher and Gavin Kilkenny, but they were both unused subs. Kelleher for Liverpool and Kilkenny for Bournemouth, as Liverpool ran out 3-1 winners there at Anfield. The likes of Conor Coventry, I know wasn't on the bench for West Ham yesterday, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's another move coming for him before the window's out. Same with Kilkenny as well. I think he'll probably get moved on from Bournemouth, where it looks more and more likely that Kelleher is going to remain Liverpool's number 2, and probably frustrating lack of game time again for another season for a lad who's now coming into his mid-20s. But just on Collins there as well, we were touched on it there. We were just saying off air, we just couldn't understand why it didn't quite fully work out from the Wolves last year. On theory, on paper, it looked a good signing, but look, again, it's very, very early days. It's only 2 games in. A lot can change. But early days, this looks like it's been a good move, because people felt Brentford might struggle at Ivan Toney. But on the evidence of their first 2 games, they look like they're still going to be very, very strong mid-table. And Collins seems to have settled in quite well so far.
Yeah, I've been delighted. I always felt like he's, even though he might have been struggling with Wolves, he was still consistently coming in and performing for Ireland as well. I always felt like if he did get a move, I thought it was a bit surprising, because obviously he moved to Burnley, and then you don't really tend to hear of kind of players going for similar prices then a year later. Obviously going to Wolves then. Because he went Stoke, then Burnley, then Wolves, then Brentford. So and they've kind of the Burnley one. I don't think that was actually big money. Sorry, the one after that was the Wolves one was a big money transfer, and then obviously the Brentford one was big money transfer. And you don't really hear of Irish players kind of going for that sort of price on your centre backs. But he's obviously desired by a lot of teams because of his size, his height. He's obviously good on the ball. We saw that with the goal he scored against Ukraine that time. He's well capable if you give him the option of playing out from the back. So he'd probably be better suited to a team that dominate games rather than being under the cosh. Even though he has the size for someone who you think would be good at playing under the cosh, and he was good at Burnley, and he was unlucky not to help them stay up the year they went down. I thought he was actually that was his kind of real breakthrough moment, was the back end of that season. I know it didn't work out for Burnley that well, but Wolves seemed to bring in Lopetegui brought in Dawson from West Ham, the centre back, and he came in and just took Collins' place, and I think they just went for a more sort of pragmatic approach, and it was like just we sit in games and we'll just grind it out. And your man's a horrible player, Dawson. I mean that in the best way possible. He's someone who'll get you over the line in games, and it's no surprise that probably West Ham struggled when he left, because he was a big part of them playing very well the season before last when they got the European place and stuff like that in the league. I thought he's been a very, very good signing for West Ham, and then obviously a really, really David Moyes type signing. But then obviously he went to Wolves. He's helped them last season to kind of just shore things up, and he came in and took Collins' place. I know Collins came in and had a few cameos here and there, but I'm delighted now to see him coming in for Brentford at a club that probably suits his style of play and his, the way it kind of played to his strengths a bit more. I think Brentford will. And yeah, we all wanted to see him do well. We all thought, oh no, this is another situation when he went to Wolves and he wasn't getting his games. Like another Irish player, unfortunately, is not being looked after here, and can't seem to get any sort of look. So he got his move to Brentford, and so far so good. And I think it's going to be good to have him coming in good form. As I said, he's always been fairly solid for Ireland, so I was never really worried about his kind of mentality or anything like that, or mental strength every time he's come in and played for Ireland. Probably similar to Egan, is that you're going to get a performance from him. And I think of all the games, even when we've been poor, I always think he's actually played well. Even the Greece game, I'm pretty sure he was our best player. Whereas everyone else just stank the place out, but I thought he was quite good. So for me, it's no surprise to see Nathan Collins doing well, and long may it last.
Yeah, good to see. And like I said, it looks like he could be in for a good season, because it looks like Brentford are going to continue on their rise. The last couple of seasons, he's in with a team that's confident and going well on the table. It will help his case as well. That's all from the Premier League. So we'll move on down to the Championship. So I'll just run through who did what over the weekend, and then we'll obviously pick out some talking points. Obviously, Aaron Connolly will be probably immediate one straight away. But starting with the Friday night game, Jason Malumbi picked up a yellow card as West Brom had to settle for a share of the spoils, drawn 1-1 away to Leeds United. They were 1-0 up in that game, but still not a bad result, even though Leeds have made a slow start since their relegation from the Premier League last season. Finn Azaz made definitely his first league start of the season for Plymouth. I'm not sure if he started in a cup for them or not. But it was disappointment for him, as they could see the late Che Adams goal to lose to 2-1 at home to Southampton, in which Gavin Bazunu and Ryan Manning both started for the winning side. Jay Coyote came on in the 67th minute for Rotherham in their 2-1 defeat away to Sunderland. A little bit of interest in that, because Jude Bellingham's younger brother scored 4 goals for Sunderland. Obviously is eligible for Ireland, but I think that's highly unlikely we'll ever see him in the green jersey, to be brutally honest. Mark Travers, Luke McNally, and Andy Stevens all played their part in Stoke City keeping a clean sheet, as they recorded a good 1-0 home win over Watford. So that's 2 wins out of 3 for Stoke, and both of them coming to the Bet365 Stadium, so they've made a pretty solid start. Alan Brown and Will Keane both started for Preston North End in their 1-0 win away to Sheffield Wednesday. I think Alan Brown had an involvement in the goal as well, just from what I heard. I was watching Soccer Saturday. I was watching the Liverpool game as well, so audio was a little bit low on Soccer Saturday. But they did mention something about Alan Brown, the free kick, so maybe he whipped in a free kick that led to the goal or something like that. They didn't actually get the assist for it anyway. Sinclair Armstrong played 65 minutes for QPR as they lost 1-0 to table toppers Ipswich Town, who Marcus Harness came on in stoppage time for that game, and Jack Taylor was once again an unused sub. But they are absolutely flying it on the return to the second tier of English football. Ipswich be interesting to see, can they keep it up. Darrell Elham, by all accounts, seems to put in a very good display as Middlesbrough, who've made a slow start to the season, but they came from behind to draw 1-1 at home at Huddersfield. He was given an 8.6 rating on Flash Score, which is the highest of all players involved in the game. So it looked like he had a very, very good afternoon at the back for Middlesbrough.
He was in team
Mark
of the
McGuinness.
He was in team of the week for the Sofa Score as well.
Yeah, so he obviously definitely put in a good display there, strengthening his case to possibly make a start for one of them 2 games in
Him and
September.
McNally, sorry,
Mark,
both of them were in, and Aaron Connolly, just so you know.
okay. Yeah, it's good to see from McNally because he was actually dropped the previous week and Stoke lost and comes back in to win and keep a clean sheet. Like you would be thinking, if anything from his form at Coventry last season anything to go by, he should be a regular in that Stoke City team this season. Mark McGuinness, Callum O'Dowd both played 90 minutes while Callum Robinson came off the last 13 minutes as Cardiff came up just short, losing 2-1 away to Leicester City. Leicester getting a very, very late goal there to deprive Cardiff what would have been a very impressive result against a team who many people expect could be a bit like Burnley last season and walk the championship. Kevin Long and Scott Hogan of Birmingham City got the better of Bristol City's trio of Max O'Leary, Jason Knight, and Mark Sykes with a good 2-0 win away in Bristol. All 5 of those players started except for Sykes. He came on to the second half substitute. Aaron Connolly, as we've touched on already, as you might see from the thumbnail and the headline, was the hero for Hull City with a brace as they came from behind to beat 10 men Blackburn Rovers 2-1 away. Connolly came on in the 66th minute excuse me, and got his first goal 15 minutes later. A brilliant finish it was. I'm sure you've seen it all on social media. And then 7 minutes later, he got his second in the winner, earning him a 7.8 rating from ClashScore. And he also got high praise from Hull Live, getting 9 out of 10 rating, saying he changed the game with 2 wonderful finishes to win the game for his side. What a threat. And Liam Senior, who was also full of praise from his loan spell there last season, once again singing his praises after the game and his finishing ability. Also in this game as well, Sean McLaughlin started for Hull and Sammy Smollett started for Blackburn Rovers, while Harry Fohan came on for Hull City. And finally then, yesterday's game, Shane Duffy started for Norwich as they recorded another home victory and maintained their unbeaten record with a 3-1 win over Millwall. Almeida came on in the 88th minute and Andrew Omabamdeli came on in the 88th minute, while I'm still not 100% sorry convinced on his pronunciation yet. The Millwall lad, Paul, sorry. Amaku, sorry, yeah, the former Shamrock Rovers player. He got a consolation goal in injury time for Millwall in this game. It's been an impressive start to the season for Akamo because he also got an assist in the opening game of the season. So, Paul, we might as well just dive straight into Aaron Connolly. We touched on it last week. He got a goal, a pretty fortunate goal, let's be honest. He couldn't have asked for a nicer gift. But nothing simple about his 2 goals this week. And it's going to lead to a lot of debate. I was saying off air, I think there's a good chance he's not just going to be in the squad for September, that he's pushing hard for starting place. You think maybe a bit more kind of work to go. But either way, it's just good to see an Irish player who we know who's got previous history and potential back in form, back scoring goals. And that's the most important thing. I say Stephen Kenny is also just delighted.
Yeah, well, I think, you're saying there about the goal. I think he was due a bit of luck. I think he's had so much bad luck in recent times when he was coming in and doing well. He got an injury when, everything else off the field wasn't going well for him and everything like that. So I think it was good for him to finally get a bit of good luck. Obviously, he took the chance with both hands, or with one foot if you rather. But I think, yeah, look, with him now, I said on the show last week that he needs now a run of games like Obafemi towards the back end of the season when he played with Swansea, and then he made himself a proper choice, first choice for Stephen Kenny, and that's what Connolly needs to do. Connolly came in before, he's done well, probably didn't score at times, and he's probably putting too much pressure on himself. So I hope if he does get called back up that he doesn't do that this time around. He tries to play similar to how he plays for Hull now, and just don't think too much about the chances and just strike a goal, get your chance, whatever. Because I feel like if he did come in, he would get a goal over the next window, whatever is against France and Ireland. I just have a feeling that he would score. I think when he's been fit and available and in good form, I think Stephen Kenny's opted for him more often than not. Kind of in a 4-3-3 off the left-hand side more so. So it would be interesting to see if he came in, what position would he play? Would he be a striker up with maybe Evan Ferguson? Because I think that is a strike force that would scare a lot of teams, you know what I mean? Or at least they would feel like they have 2 potential danger players, because you look at what Connolly did to Portugal in that game when we lost, obviously eventually 2-1 with 2 Ronaldo goals, but Connolly and Adam Ida that night were brilliant, and I thought they really put the Portuguese defence under severe amount of pressure. Don't forget Ruben Diaz was one of the best defenders in the world at that moment in time. He still is, obviously, but I think Connolly and Ida really made a handful for him and Pepe. So it's not to say that Connolly's a bad player. I think we've just been dying to see him in a bit of good form, and we want to see him now kicking on. We never felt as though he was a bad player. I don't think anyone's ever said he's a bad player. People always question his attitude and stuff like that. But obviously, I did the podcast with him a year ago when he signed for Venezia, and it was like it seemed like he turned the corner in maturity. Obviously, Jim Crawford said that as well, and that's why he actually picked him for the 21s. He came in, he done well for the 21s, and then Venezia didn't work out for him. He went to Hull because of Liam Rowe Sr. He knew him from his Brighton days. And I think every time he's played for Hull, he's done well. Even last season, he got the 2 goals in one game, and he looked really good. And then he got injured, and I think he was only playing himself into a bit of form. I said this as well last week. Is like if he continues this goal scoring run until January, the club are bound to have to give him a new contract, because he'll go for free in January. Like, he could sign for another club because he entered the last 6 months of your contract. You can start speaking to other clubs. So I think if he keeps scoring, clubs will be interested in him. Probably Premier League clubs come January. I know it's a long way off now at this moment in time, but if he can keep up his form, as I said, like with Obafemi when he had that really good season with Swansea, and he was scoring every single week, and then obviously played himself in, scored the goal against Scotland, and that assist for Troy Parrott as well. And from then on, it was Obafemi has to start up until the point where Evan Ferguson came in. So yeah, look, it's good to have options, because in the last number of years, our only options have been Callum Robinson, Troy Parrott, and a few others, because they're the only ones who kind of been scoring goals. So to have a few players, it's great to have the options, and it's a good headache for Stephen Kenny. And I'm delighted for Aaron as well, because away from football and away from everything else, I got to know him a few over the few years since he kind of made his breakthrough with Brighton. He's a nice lad. He is a nice lad. You want to see him do well. I don't think he deserves half of the abuse that he gets, even from his own fans, the Irish fans. So yeah, delighted for him. Hopefully he can keep it up now, and let's see where he goes from here.
Yeah, so like I said, just good to see to have a feel good, positive story to take away from the weekend. Like I said, just good to see as well. It's not just Evan Ferguson who can put the ball in the back of the net for us. What else kind of from the championship caught your eye over the weekend? I suppose Gavin Bazunu kind of made a lot of headlines through no kind of participation of his own off the field kind of during the week, but for all the right reasons. It was really good to see his manager Russell Martin kind of back him up, and by all accounts as well, even though he didn't keep the clean sheet that he would have liked at the weekend, I think by all accounts he still had a good performance, and Southampton are going quite well. And obviously, I suppose the other big frustrating news from a Southampton point of view is that Will Smallbone looks like he's set for another spell, and quite a lengthy spell on the sidelines, just when you kind of felt he'd really started to come into his own.
Yeah, I think with Smallbone, it was the case. I think he actually was playing himself for a move. I think Sheffield United came in and bid for him. We spoke about them not replacing Sander Berg. It seemed as though they wanted Smallbone to be the replacement, because I think it was a 9 million bid that was rejected by Southampton. So I'd imagine as the window got closer and he was continuing to play well, I think they would have bid whatever Southampton were looking for him. And now they've gotten rid of James Ward-Prowse as well, so it looks as though they probably actually didn't need to sell him, but it would have been interesting to see what way that would have happened, whether he would have went or not. Smallbone, I think he came in and played for the Ireland under-21s last year, and I think that's when people started to really make notice. It was a game in Tala. I can't remember the opposition, but he set up Odebeku for his goal. I think he got a goal himself. It was a summer day. It was in Tala. It was actually
Bosnia or someone like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Actually, it was around a year ago, I think. From then on, I think people started taking him serious. He got to move to Stoke. Didn't really perform that well at Stoke. He had some games good, some games bad, but again, it was more of a learning curve last year. I think this was the year where everyone was expecting him to kind of start taking the reins and start doing well. But I think Bazunu, delighted to see that from Russell Martin. I think that's what he needed. It was a real kind of Harry Redknapp on Frank Lampard. I think everybody felt as though it was very similar to that. I think it's something that maybe we'll come back to in a few years' time and go, you know what, it was great that he did that, because now we can see that Bazunu is trusted, and no matter what happens there, Russell Martin seems to have his back, and that's what you want. And I think Russell Martin's he's building his trade slowly but surely, and he's obviously worked with a fair few of the Irish players as well now. I think Obafemi and Manning, and now Bazunu and Smallbone and stuff like that. So he's developed a lot of our Irish players, and I think that he'll go on to be a very good manager. I'm impressed by the way he handles himself, impressed by his beautiful hairline, and I'm also impressed by just his style of play in terms of the way he's played football with Swansea, MK Dons, and now Southampton. And yeah, it just seems to be that's what he's going for, and he seems Bazunu's the keeper that he would like to. So he was saying that he would love to sign Bazunu if he wasn't already at the club. So I think that was a huge endorsement, and I think it was something Bazunu needed, and it shut a lot of people up. Even your man in the I'm gonna call it a conference, but he didn't have anything to say, and the whole room clapped. Well, it seems as though the whole room clapped after he said what he said. So it seems as though there's a minority that have it in for Bazunu, but the majority seem to really highly rate him. And this could be the making of Bazunu. Yeah, you know what I mean. He praised his mentality and stuff like that. I've spoken about his mentality numerous times, and you get that from speaking to him and who he surrounds himself with and all that type of stuff. He just seems like a great lad, Bazunu, and it's nice to see him doing that. Luke McNally, obviously, we spoke about him. He got into the team of the week with Darragh Lenihan again. Finished the season so strongly at Coventry last year, and he could be one you just don't know that Stephen Kenny could be looking at to come in to the squad. He's just been solid throughout his championship career, I would say. And I wonder what's going to happen to him at the end of this loan. Will Company decide to keep him? Obviously, it's going to depend on a number of different factors. Can Burnley stay up? If they go back down, then he'll probably be more than likely kept. But I would like to see if he could make the step up to Premier League level, whether he gets that through playing international football. Stephen Kenny's done that with numerous players by now, so he's not been afraid to bring players in and show them the ropes. So it's exciting, I think, in many senses, that there is young up-and-coming players in the Championship that seem to be making a name for themselves and doing quite well. So I just wonder what will happen now in terms of the squad, because I just wonder if we'll have any new faces coming in, and if so, would McNally be one of them? In terms of the other stuff in the Championship, Adama Amaku, he seems to be really adapting to life at Millwall. He seems to have a good pre-season, and he's been scoring goals. And yeah, it's just a matter now for him just to kick on that bit more, and just if he keeps scoring, he could be in line as well to be looked at. I don't think he'd be called up for France and Netherlands, but if he can keep going, I think there's other games there that he may be looked at to see if he's a realistic possibility. But he's only 18, 19 or 20, and I think he's huge potential to keep growing, and doesn't look phased at Championship level. Like he would have been scoring the consolation goal against the likes of Andrew Mbamidele and Shane Duffy in that game. So for him to come up and score against them, I think that shows that he's not far off the level required now as well. So yeah, it's not been the busiest week for Irish players, but the ones that have come in and done well, I think they're all kind of realistic candidates to be looked at for the international window coming up.
Yeah, I think he's actually obviously looks like he's going to be an option for Jim Crawford, and probably a definite starter for September. I think Sinclair Armstrong could be another one into that category. I don't think he's going to do enough so far at the start of the season to earn a place in the squad. But if he can keep doing it over a consistent level, we could see him in the October window, certainly maybe the November window. It'll be interesting to see. We only at the moment are down for one game in the November window, the Dutch game on the Saturday. So would we look to get maybe a friendly after that? Could be a chance to bring in players, but look, that'll all taken care of over time. And just even on Luke McNally, as you're saying about giving the Premier League chance. It would have been very interesting to see what would happen to that playoff final. Had gone a bit differently, and it was Coventry that got promoted. Would they have then looked to have kept them on? Surprised that they maybe didn't want to go back in from again, but I suppose that's just the way that football goes. We'll just run through kind of stuff from League Two. From not like I don't have anything here from League One because no Irish player did any contribution, good, bad, or indifferent. So I didn't bother jotting down anything from League One. Just from League Two, just a small bit here. Deli Sotana, I hope I pronounced that name correctly. He scored Doncaster's sole goal in their 3-1 defeat at home to Notts County. Just a little bit of background on him if people aren't too familiar with him. He's 20 years of age. He was born in Waterford, moved to Mullingar as a child. His previous clubs at youth level included Manchester United, Nice, and Burnley, before he eventually signed for Doncaster in the summer. And he's previously represented Ireland at under 15 and under 16 level. So maybe if he can keep producing something for Doncaster, he could be in Jim Crawford's thoughts for September. And just two other bits of news from League Two. Ryan Delaney got an assist in Newport County's 3-0 win over Forest Green Rovers away from home. And Lee Connor got an assist for Tranmere, but they came out on the wrong side of a 7-goal thriller, losing 4-3 at home to Salford City. Then in Scotland, just a little bit of news here. James Brown, he also got an assist for Ross County in their 4-3 victory over Artemidonians away from home in the League Cup. And Corey Nadaba, he played the full 90 minutes as Kilmarnock completed the Old Firm double. Just 2 weeks after beating Rangers in the league, they've now dumped out holders Celtic out the League Cup, beating them 1-0 home. So a very impressive result for them. Liam Scales was an unused sub in that game for Celtic. Despite featuring quite a lot in pre-season, it looks like his Celtic career, I think, could be at an end. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a move there, and it's a permanent one this time before the window's out. And then in Europe, as we touched on there a little bit earlier, Festi Abicelli played 56 minutes for Udinese in their opening game of the new Serie A season, but it was a bit of a chasing experience. They lost 3-0 at home to Juventus, and I think the reason he actually was taken off, it said on the Republic of Ireland player tracker page on Twitter, due to heavy cramp. But I think you were saying there, Paul, it looks like he's actually picked up an injury. So we'll probably know more about that over the next days and week or so. But for his time on the pitch, Flash score gave him a 5.6 rating. In Serie B, sticking with Italy, Liam Corrigan continued his recovery from that long-term injury by playing the last 32 minutes of Como's 3-0 defeat at home to Venice. And in the Austrian Bundesliga, Conor Noss played 55 minutes for BW Linz as they were trashed 5-0 at home to the hands of Rapid Vienna. And then finally from the MLS, just two bits of news. John Gallagher had a double game week. He first played 90 minutes for Austin FC on Wednesday night as they beat Sporting Kansas 2-1 at home, and he then got an assist in their game over the weekend, but they were beaten this time 6-3 by St. Louis City. Austin FC are 7th in the Western Conference. And then finally, Derek Williams picked up a yellow card for DC United as they lost 1-0 away to New York Red Bulls, a result that leaves them 10th in the Eastern Conference. So I suppose, Paul, just maybe probably the big thing just to pick up on there before we finish up are probably the two bits of news from Italy. Festi Abicelli, obviously, you know, you kind of think to yourself, he played in the Coppa Italia last week. I think he played 80 odd minutes, done quite well. Gets another Serie A start under his belt. You're obviously hoping that it's nothing serious. If it is an injury, that will be in Stephen Kenny's thoughts for the squad, because he definitely would have been in that squad and probably would have featured in the junior games only for an injury at the end of last season. And then also just as well, Lynn Corrigan, just from checking his date of birth. Oh no, never mind. I was going to say he's could be in Jim Crawford's thoughts and minds, but he's overage, and let's be brutally honest, is probably still a good bit off the radar in terms of making Stephen Kenny's squad.
Yeah, I think with Festi, I think it's the case now of like if he doesn't get into the Irish squad soon, I think he's just gonna, just leave. I think he'll end up playing for somebody else. I think he's fed up having come in and doing well, playing for a Serie A club, and there's championship players there that Kenny's particularly looking at the whole time. I don't think it's fair, really, that he's been coming in, he's been trusted at Udinese. We all thought he was just going to go there and not play. He's gone there and seems to be going about it the right way, and seems to be, I suppose, looking like he's comfortable at that level when he has played. Look, we're playing against Juventus. You're coming against the best players. I know they're not as strong as they have been in recent times, but they still have a lot of those players at that club. They're just probably aging a bit. But I think Festi, another season at Serie A level, and he's starting games. Last season he was on the bench a lot, coming on for the last couple of minutes of games, and not really seeing what he's all about. So for this season that he started it so well, I know he seemed to have picked up an injury, but you say it's cramp, so it could be cramp. Hopefully that is the case. So it'd just be interested to see now, if does he keep starting in the games. If it was just cramp, will he start the next game? Great. Why is he not being called up then? What is the issue not being called? And why is Ryan Manning not being called up as well? Because he's
Sammy Smollox as well, as someone touched on in the comments.
Yeah. So there's these situations, like why are they not being called up? Are the players that are being brought in ahead of them, like Callum O'Dowda? He's a good attacking player, but he's not like a left wing back we saw against Greece. He was at fault for if not both, he was at fault for one anyway. The handball, which was silly enough, but I think
surely Jeff Hendrick is not making this next squad.
But you can't imagine so. I don't even know where he is right now. Is he still?
He's still technically a Newcastle. I work with a lad who's a Geordie from Newcastle. The plan was Reading were going to sign him, but obviously they have a transfer embargo. So he's in limbo land at the moment. Obviously Newcastle are trying to get rid of players. I do expect that he will be gone out the door before the 1st September, but he never featured in pre-season. He's obviously not coming anywhere near their matchday squad. Like someone like Alex Murphy featured a lot in pre-season for Newcastle, and he's not making their matchday squads now. I think he's off the other end of the spectrum. I do think he'll get a lower move from a player development point of view. But someone like Jeff Hendrick, who's coming nowhere near first team football moment, even if he does get a move, he's not going to be that match kind of sharp. Like, surely to God, like, he should not be in the next squad. Like James McLean's another one as well. He's dropped down to League Two with Wrexham. I didn't see him involved in the matchday squad all the weekend. I don't know, is he injured or what's the story there? But you're kind of thinking, like, again, go back to Festi. Like, if he doesn't make the next squad and sees James McLean gets picked, like, I think he'd be right going off his head. Like, he's playing the top league in Italy versus someone who's playing the 4th tier of English football, regardless of what McLean has done in the past.
Yeah, no, and that's where Kenny's loyalties. If he does that, I think he's pretty much gone. At the end of this, I suppose by November, I think he'll be gone. If I'm being honest. So yeah, I think it's the future is these younger players coming in, the likes of Ebuseli, and like someone's just said there, how do you guys feel about the situation with right wing back with Coleman aging and Doherty's career looking bleak? As we touched on it a little bit earlier, is that we do need players to start coming in now and being trusted to get caps and come through. And I think that's where Ebuseli is at. I think he needs to be the one now who is regularly playing at the highest level. He needs to be the one that's brought in and played. He seems to be great mates with Obafemi as well. I know he likes a lot of our posts on Instagram when it's usually anything to do with Obafemi and stuff like that. So he would have came in at the same stage as Obafemi, but for some reason hasn't been given any sort of game time at all. Because they would have came in the same camp when the Scotland game came around. And for some reason, as I said, Festi wasn't picked. And he's probably wondering, I've been in and around this squad now for the guts of 9 months or whatever, and I haven't been chosen, and other people have been chosen ahead of me. Doherty's not playing, Coleman's injured. Next person in line, you would think off the top of your head is probably him, or maybe even Danny McNamara at Millwall, who's playing every single week of Championship, and he's playing well. And he's not really been given a look in either. So it's going to be an interesting squad announcement, I think, when it actually does come out. You'd be interested to see, will there be any new faces, as I said earlier. Just someone said, another comment on Troy. It says, thoughts on Parrott.
That's what I just wanted to actually bring up before we finished up as well.
Well, I'll let you read it out, so go on.
Yeah. So it's just like, speaking of Jeff Hendrick and Limbo Land, this is another player as well who's also in Limbo Land. I've just gone on to the YouTube stream there. Just can't see it there, Paul. Maybe if you actually...
I have it.
Sorry, I have it here. Yeah, thoughts on Parrott potentially leaving Spurs. Thinks he's linked with overseas, Spanish, Dutch, German teams looking at him. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing as well from a mate of mine who used to be a season ticket holder with me, that it seems to be kind of lower end teams in the likes of the Bundesliga, La Liga, Eredivisie, which, let's be honest, teams at that level probably would be similar to the Championship, maybe even a little bit lower than top end Championship teams. But Troy is only seen to play kind of with mid level Championship teams like Millwall and Preston, and let's be honest, he disappointed at both spells. I know injuries didn't really help him. Went down to NK Dons, won, did okay, didn't exactly shoot the lights out, but yeah, like I think it's been pretty clear and obvious over the last 2 seasons he's not going to make it at Spurs. He's still probably a good bit shy of Premier League football, but like hasn't been given a shirt number by Tottenham. Didn't feature at all in pre-season. Like he needs to get a move. But again, like Jeff Hendrick, even if he does get a move between now and the 1st of September, and Kenny's squad is going to be announced, probably even before then. That's what I'm mean about Aaron Connolly starting. Like Adam Mead to score the opening day against Norwich. Story of his season, story of his career, sorry, even hasn't kicked on since. I know he hasn't started by a League Cup game. Maybe you might give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt that way. Troy's not playing. Obafemi's injured. And like that's why I'm kind of thinking, like, is even Troy going to be in the squad? And if he is, like, I can't see how you could give him game time unless he gets a move between now and Friday and gets a couple of games in with his new club. But that looks unlikely.
Yeah, I think it was Footy Insider that originally published that Spurs have been talking to clubs, or people have got in touch with Spurs to speak to Troy. So yeah, look, it's interesting. I think it could be the making of him if he was to go abroad and kind of get away from all the kind of noise. He always seems to be surrounded by not the brightest people, if you're led to believe kind of what other people say. But I think if you could get away from some of the silly people that he seems to be hanging around with, and it's more focused maybe on his football. I know he has a partner at the moment as well, so maybe a case for him and her to go abroad, make a new life. Although I think it's only going to be a loan. You kind of put comparisons then to Jack Byrne when he went abroad and how beneficial it was for him. I don't think, I wouldn't be so concerned about the lower level. If it's a case if he actually went abroad and was playing well, I think he gets more plaudits for doing that. Whereas if he stayed in England and was just playing Championship, he's just going to be criticised every week. Where I think if he went to a foreign club and he actually was playing La Liga, whether that's lower end La Liga, like a Getafe or someone like that, I don't know. If he could play with someone like that, or in Bundesliga, I don't know who the lower end teams in the Bundesliga are at the moment. I don't really watch that league that much, to be fair. And at the Eredivisie, I wouldn't like to see him go to too many lower league teams. I see Jared Brantwaite from Everton went to PSV last season, had a really good season, came back. Hasn't actually got a look in for Everton yet, but a lot of fans are calling for him to be played because he had such a good season with PSV. I think Troy should be aiming for a top level Eredivisie side or a lower level La Liga or Bundesliga, because that's where he'll actually get in and play. I think once he's playing in the league, I'd be happy to see it, but I just don't think that if you're going to have him playing, like, I just don't want to see him playing in the Championship anymore. He's proven that he can do it at international level, so there's obviously he's got that about him, but sometimes he can go to some different leagues and you can look a lot better because they're slower. Like, obviously we know the Premier League's like the fastest league in the world or whatever, and apparently the best, but he doesn't seem to have any sort of pace for a young lad. Like, I'd say he's average in terms of his quickness, whereas Connolly is like a light, he's super fast.
And Obafemi.
And Obafemi, yeah, and probably either too. So all of them have that pace, but Troy is probably the best finisher out of a lot of them. I think if you talk to most Irish players, they would say Troy is the best finisher. So, if he went to a league where maybe it's not as high paced and a bit more technical, you might see him actually flourish a bit more. And then if he was, then I think he should probably try and stay there, because that's what I think that happened to Jack Byrne, is that he moved then and he never really, I suppose, recovered from it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously going back to Rovers, had a brilliant season at Rovers, then got to move to Apoel. That didn't work out, and then he got back to Rovers again, still being looked about. And I know it's a totally different topic, but I'm just saying is that maybe if he had stayed in Holland, he would have maybe prolonged his international career and stuff like that as well. You know, he seemed to really enjoy his football over there too, and he spoke about kind of how when he was playing for what's the name of them? Camber, yeah. When he was playing for Camber, that the fans, if you played terrible and came off the pitch, like if you played like back end of Martin O'Neill football or Mick McCarthy long ball, like the fans would be coming off giving you a stick. Whereas if you actually came up and you played well, but you still got beaten, the fans still loved it because they want to see you play proper football. So I think that could be beneficial for him if he is to go abroad. But it'd be interesting to see, you know, I'd love to know who the clubs are that are interested in him, and then I'd love to see if he will go and where he will go. He's obviously going to go somewhere by the end of the window. So I don't think he'll be in the Ireland squad because he hasn't been playing. I just don't think it makes any sense to be calling him up. So, as I said, and I repeat myself again, it's going to be interesting to see who is actually going to be maybe in the squad. You know, and I think another player who we probably didn't talk about enough is Ryan Manning. Has to be in that squad as a actual player who plays that position as a left wing back, and he's playing it every single week for whatever club he's at. He's playing it, so I don't understand this whole we're not going to pick him at all. I think last time out he had a baby, which is fair enough, but this time around he has to be in there, I think.
Yeah, and now tempting fate, I think there's a highly good chance Ryan Manning's going to be a Premier League player this time next year because I think Southampton are going to get promoted. But look, that's for debate for another day, and we'll see how that plays out over the course of the rest of the season. I think that's pretty much everything that we've covered, Paul. We've spent certainly a good bit of time and got through an awful lot of talking points there. Hopefully, it'll be just as much to get through again next Monday. But it's great to be back on the show, and hopefully be first of many appearances for myself this season. Obviously, good to see that you're keeping well yourself too. So I'm sure we'll touch base again over the coming weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Fair play to you as well. So I'm sure we'll be back on again next week, probably on the Sunday. People are probably wondering why we're doing this on a Monday morning because I had a christening yesterday, so it was just busy. So yeah, we'll go back to the Sunday time again next week. So yeah, you have yourself a fantastic week. Hopefully some more good news this week for Irish players, and they carry that momentum then into next week. So I'll actually be over at Everton and Wolves this week, so I may see Seamus Coleman maybe in the squad. I don't know yet, but we'll wait and see. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. Thanks for everyone who got involved in the comments. I know there's some comments we didn't get around to, but keep your comments coming in because next week when we're doing it as well live, set your little reminders for around 8 or 9 on Sunday evenings. There's obviously going to be games played tonight and stuff like that, so some of the players that are playing tonight we obviously didn't talk about now. So yeah, keep an eye out as well for the League of Ireland